Right, so second attempt of the Writer's Toolbox color coding paragraphs. So obviously I really want you guys to be color coding your body paragraphs, whether it's just a one paragraph prompt you've got or an essay. I want you color coding your body paragraphs. And we've already been doing this for a while now, but this is just a reminder. So I've got a paragraph here, it looks cool, it makes it a lot easier for me and a lot easier for you if you can just immediately look at something and go, yep, there's enough analysis in that, there's enough evidence in that, the evidence is done correctly, and the topic sentence and supporting and closing sentence is really clear. So to do that, we use the color code system. So the first thing we do, we've got a topic sentence. It's a combination, it's highlighted yellow, and it's a combination of black and purple pink writing. Now the black is the what. You know, you've got given a prompt. How does Golding develop the theme of human nature? Well, Golding uses Ralph to develop the theme of human nature. That's kind of a what question. But how does he do? How does he use Ralph? By writing him as a flawed protagonist. That's the how. So you got your purple is why or how, and black is the what. For it to be a really strong topic sentence, I want you to make sure you're using how or why in that. And then you need to give evidence to support this. Now, I've got a claim like this. This is my main claim. My topic sentence is my main claim for the paragraph. I'm going to need to back this up with evidence. Now, for this one, Ralph is good and bad. He represents good and bad. I could probably do 3 pieces of evidence. So my first piece of evidence is Ralph, the hero of the story, might have made a boxer and yet has a mildness about his mouth and eyes which proclaim no devil. That's my first piece of evidence. It basically says he looks like he's both good and bad. Physically, he looks like he's both good and bad. Now, the way I've given evidence is I've given context. I've told the reader who, what, when, where, why, to whom, in order for them to understand what's happening. If I'd have just written, for instance, might have made a boxer, no one would have made, it wouldn't have made sense. No one would know what you're talking about. So I have to give that context using my words in blue and put the author's words in the middle of that. So that's what that looks like. I use the best quotes. I only use the things I actually want to talk about. I don't just put in 3 sentences of stuff from the book. I just pick the tiny little pieces that I want and I put that in the middle of my explanation or at the end of my explanation of the context. So now we know that this is about Ralph, and we also know that Ralph is the hero of the story. So all of this red stuff makes a lot more sense now. So now I need to analyze it. Well, I've put this signifies that whilst Ralph is capable of violence and has a body for it, you know, he's a boxer, he is still a mild boy with no devil about him. Moreover, the word devil is later used to describe the savage hunters in chapter 11, which further reveals Ralph's pure nature in chapter 1. Perhaps Golding chose to write Ralph in a way to suggest that even those who are good are still capable of brutality. So I've analysed only what I've spoken about. I've only analysed the boxer and the mildness and no devil. I've not started talking about other stuff. So I picked the red. So I have to be really picky when I'm getting my evidence as well. Now, I don't think that alone backs up my claim, so I've got another piece of evidence. I need another piece of evidence, so I've got a subclaim, a transition to this, using orange. So added to this, Ralph is somewhat as a bully. So I've said he's good and bad. I've got here, he physically looks both good and bad. His personality is somewhat bad. He's somewhat a bully. And I've given evidence for that. After meeting Ralph and inviting him to swim, Piggy declines due to his asthma. Ralph responds nastily to this by mocking him and saying, "Sucks to your asthma." So again, it's 2 sentences here, but I've given context. Someone who's never read the story now knows it's Piggy, and Piggy's got asthma and he doesn't swim, and because of that, Ralph says, "Sucks to your asthma." Without that, the reader might not understand what the quote means. So I've given enough stuff for that, and I've put the quote in my description. So it all makes sense as 1 or 2 sentences. Then again, I've analysed it. So I've got this metaphor I've identified, level 1, makes an arse out of Piggy, and explained it. And on top of human nature develops the theme of strong versus the weak. Golding was a bully himself at school, so he could have written Ralph based on his own experiences. He was also a school teacher and often saw bullying amongst boys, so this would be level 3 analysis. And then I look at that and I've gone, you know what? I've said he's good and bad. Physically, he looks good and bad. his personality is a bit bad. I'm like, that's not enough. I need one more piece of evidence to make my claim strong. So I've shown how he's also good. So conversely, despite Ralph's occasional mocking of Piggy, he does in fact defend him. So again, piece of evidence, combination of blue and red. When Jack meets Piggy, he verbally attacks him, telling him to shut up, Fatty. Ralph immediately comes to Piggy's aid by informing the rest that his name is not Fatty, he's Piggy. So again, you can see that it's me giving context. Why did they do it? Who said what? When? To whom? So I've given all of the context so someone who's not read the story understands the red. And I've put the red within my description, within my explanation of the scene. Then I've analysed it again. So Ralph, what's going on? Level 1, level 2, level 3. So that's it. Now I need to end the paragraph. The way I do that is by having a closing sentence and I restate the topic sentence. My topic sentence, Golding uses Ralph to develop the theme of human nature by writing him as a flawed protagonist, representing the good and bad in all of us. My closing sentence is the same thing, just in different words. So in sum, whilst Ralph is definitely not an evil character, he is not without his faults, building upon the theme of human nature. This would all relate back to the thesis statement as well. So that's what a paragraph should look like. So when you do your analysis, you're looking for every piece of red, you should be doing level 1. You know, identify the literary language. So is it imagery, a simile, polysyndeton, juxtaposition, a metaphor, oxymoron? Identify what it is, or even if it's just really interesting word choice from the author, identify it and explain its effect, what it means, what it's trying to say, connotations, denotations, anything like that. So that's level 1. And then we go beyond level 1 and we say how it changes the whole story. So that little piece you've got, how does that develop the character as a whole, the story, the plot as a whole, the setting, the tone. So you should use strong verbs like reveal, signifies. And that's what level 2 is. So the little piece, how does it interact with the book as a whole? And then finally, level 3, link it to outside the book. So you can do big ideas or themes, the author and his intentions and his life, the history of when it was written, or another book, basically linking it to a connection in the real world. And that's your analysis. So make sure you're doing that. Again, there's videos on the Writers' Workshop to help you with that. Just give a quick example of a honours one as well for Romeo and Juliet. So this is a Romeo and Juliet example. So being of a lower social class in the Capulet family, the nurse is portrayed to be a lot more forthcoming and Bawdy is still very warm towards Juliet. That's my main claim, my topic sentence. The nurse's liberal way of speaking is demonstrated when recounting a story of a young Juliet wherein Juliet banged her forehead. The nurse described the bump on Juliet's brow by saying it was as big as a young cockerel stone. My evidence, the author's words embedded in my context. So now the reader of my work will understand what's happening in the play. This simile, I've identified it, means the bump on Juliet endured as a child was as large as a rooster's you know what. This is not only so that's level 1. This is not only inappropriate because she's speaking to a child, but she's addressing her employer of a higher status. Demonstrates the nurse's vulgar nature, attributed to her not having a basic understanding of social boundaries. Important, it shows how Shakespeare differentiates between high and low class. Another example are Gregory and Samson, sexual remarks towards women. That's level 2 and a bit of level 3. Conversely, to these improper traits, it is no secret that the nurse is warm and loving towards Juliet. I needed a subclaim to back up my main claim. So I've used a transition, conversely to these improper traits. When Lady Capulet, Juliet's mother, speaks to her daughter, she addresses her in a formal and cold, direct manner. However, the nurse refers to Juliet as a lamb and a ladybird. This not only reveals that the nurse is a lot more gentle and caring towards Juliet, but it reminds the reader that Juliet is like a daughter to the nurse ever since she lost her own. Additionally, this occurrence reveals to modern-day audiences it was not uncommon for a mother of a higher class to be a stranger to her daughter. In fact, the nurse was a wet nurse, meaning she breastfed the baby Juliet instead of her mother. This was common practice for higher status families in Elizabethan England. So level 3 there. Finally, I've got my closing sentence, which just restates my topic sentence. So, in sum, whilst the nurse does not use, well, it does use vulgar and intimate language when describing Juliet's childhood, we must not fail to remember that she is doing this out of love and ignorance. So, just to also give some credit, this isn't my work. This is two students in an honours class combined. So, well done to them. Nice one.